Uh, Good afternoon to all of you, my dear friends. Welcome back in the class of SRIRAM. Today we have to discuss about the previous year question, this year questions of social issues means Indian society. There are 7 questions as we find over here, and all these questions fortunately from our class discussion, class lectures. And class lecture is very fruitful in terms of finding the finding the input for answer writing, because we all discuss in our class different topics in a very comprehensive manner. Fortunately, we find these questions from the class discussion, class lecture itself. Now, there are very beautiful questions this year. Questions are very simple. Questions are more like selective in terms of the understanding, and these questions are of general discussion. Means questions are not very complicated, questions are very simple and very basic concepts are there. If you have the understanding about the questions, a proper understanding about the different terms, then we are able to answer properly. Let us begin our discussion over here. The first question that we have distinguish between gender equality. We have gender equity. This distinguish between gender equality, gender equity and women empowerment, and why it is important to take gender concerns into account in program designed and implementation. If we understand these parts, then we understand over here how these questions are important. First term is here like we have the gender equality. First term we have here that we know, that is the gender equality, and the second word is the gender equity. Gender equality and the gender equity, third word is here woman empowerment. I think all these terms are closely related but have distinction and differences between two. First, when we talk about gender equality, and second gender equity, and third gender empowerment. So we can have introduction, how to have the introduction of the question, how to have the body structure of the question, and how to have the conclusion in the question. But whenever you are going to answer these questions, first what we are required to do, that define the keywords, and keywords over here are 3, gender equality, gender equity and woman empowerment. Before I elaborate the 3 terms, first I will try to say a small distinction between 3 words. That is, first we have the term gender, second we have the term equity, third we have the term empowerment. If you understand the meaning of these 3 words, it will be quite clear before all of us. First is a term, that is a gender. We all know that gender is basically socio-culturally constructed concept which define relationship between man and woman in society. Sex is a biological division, gender is a kind of the sexual division, and that is based upon the culture and value of the society itself. So when we talk about gender equality, when we talking about this term, actually it involves the equal treatment between man and woman. So gender equality basically talks about equality between man and woman in the society, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of their condition. So we can say here like we can say here that when we go for this word, first term we are supposed to do is first term is gender equality. What is the meaning of this term? As you know, in simplest way we can say gender equality means simply equality between man and woman in society. or in another sense we can say like equal distribution of burden and benefits between man and woman in society, right? So meaning is clear. Gender equality simply focuses on equality between man and woman in terms of resources, in terms of opportunities, in terms of burden. So regardless of their circumstance, here the focus is more on how to promote equality between two. When we go for the next term we have that I told you gender equality, and after that we have gender equity second word. And when we talk about gender equity, equity means actually there is a difference between the equality and equity, both related to the distributive justice, but equality focuses on the sameness. But when we talk about the equity means as per need of the people, as per requirement of the people. So when we talk about the gender equity means simply process of providing resources and of opportunities as per needs. See, so when we talk about here, the main focus is on the need. Gender equity is based upon the understanding that in society there is not equal opportunity, there is no equal historical condition between man and woman in the society itself. So what sometimes we find, historically there may be prejudice, or in fact there is prejudice against the woman. So gender equity try to address the concerns of historical inequality, historical imbalances, historical prejudice because of which the woman suffered. So this part we require to mention. So when we go for equity, for example, if you say like suppose two individuals are there, by one pictographic representation we can say, suppose one man, one person is there, like suppose one person is standing here and one person is standing here. And when we talk about this person standing here, and in terms of what we say, in terms of height, if you say it is less, right, it is less, and there is a common platform. So this man can have the better to go there and this one, but here platform is common. That talk about equality. When we talk about the equity, simply if we try to just make some additional advantage to this side, so that this person could be here, this person could be here, then here the length is almost equal. So in this way, this process we can mention that gender equity involves giving some more opportunities or some more resources as per the need, as per the circumstances of the people. So if required something more, it will be given, not as per equality, not as per equal opportunity, but in terms of what is the need, what is the basic requirement of two. Accordingly, some facility can be given more to such section of society. This is considered equity. And gender equity is one of the way to ensure gender equality. Through the equity, we can say like gender equity is a process to promote gender equality, right? To promote the gender equality. Gender equity is a process to promote gender equality. This will enhance and therefore by recognizing the requirement of both, how much requirement for one side, how much requirement for another side. So providing resources that fitting the need of that person, according to the need of the individual. Two words required, distinction between two clear. And third term is that we have, that is a woman empowerment, right? Third word is a woman empowerment. Again, we know the meaning. Empowerment means what? When we talk about empowerment, an empowered person is one who is able to take decision in his life properly. A person who is having sufficient opportunity, independence to regulate one's own life conditions, that we talk about the empowerment. So, in this way we can say woman empowerment means the process of accessing resources and opportunities, so that they can make choices. This is a very important word. Make choices in their day-to-day life regarding education, health, jobs or employment, decision making, right? Gender equality. This social empowerment mainly involves how there is a process of accessing resources and opportunities to the people so that they can make choices in their day-to-day life. Resources and opportunity to the women so that they can make choices in their life with regard to their health, education, employment, decision making. Regarding these matters, now it is considered even a significant part of women in our society not able to take decision, but decision taken by someone else, right? So this concern is very important. It also involves sense of self-worth, just not object, self-worth, sense of self-confidence, sense of autonomy. These are very important. When we talk about gender equality, we are supposed to mention these words, like it also involves sense of self-worth, self-confidence, autonomy on the part of women. We can also mention like one more term over here, like that regarding sexuality. Today it is considered that it is also very important. Regarding this matter, because now there is a woman movement have this demand that they should have control over their own sexuality. So this is the word social empowerment. I just try to define briefly. So that first gender equality, second gender equity, third the woman empowerment, and woman empowerment also leads to gender equality. Woman empowerment also leads to gender equality. So if we have to promote equality in our society, gender equality in society, empowerment is a fundamental condition for women, is essential condition to give them opportunities so that they will go for the own choices and they can condition their own life situations, right? Now this part is done. What is the next part of this question? That importance of gender concern in the designing and implementing government policies and programs. And the third part of the question was how we can go for this matter. And third part means that how important, how concerns is important in designing and implementing policies. Designing and implementing policies. This part, or your answer would be, when you will frame the body structure, you will start from here, this only, that importance of gender concern in designing and implementing policy. What is required over here? Why? How it is important? In what way we can say many problems of women. If you have understanding about the patriarchal social structure, if you know about the equality between man and woman society, and kind of marginality they suffer in our day-to-day life, then you can write the answer very easily. Like here we can give some points. The points could be like, suppose first, required to address gender inequality. Required to address gender inequality by promoting gender mainstreaming. So if we have to promote that how gender concern is important in policy making and design, the first consider to promote just to address the gender inequality by promoting gender mainstreaming society. Means bringing women into the mainstream part of society. By this way we can go for this implementation. Second, considered that promote gender based policies. To promote gender based policies. Second one is just whenever we are going for to promote the gender based policies. This is the second requirement. Third, considered like removing policy barriers. Removing barriers in policy making and policy implementation. Next is considered that why gender concern is important, that sometimes you find many institutional barrier against the woman in society, and so at policy making level, second the policy implementing level, whatever are the barriers we can go for this matter at different stages, and this can be done by identification of the problems related to the gender. Third is considered that making development more effective. Next, considered making development more effective and sustainable. Gender concern is more required to making development more effective and sustainable. And last but not least, so many points could be there, we have to keep in mind the word limits. So next we can say that like policy impact assessment. Policy impact assessment. Next is consider that we have the policy impact assessment, and after the policy impact assessment we can also go for follow up action, right or not. So in this way we can say that gender concern today is very important, like gender budgeting in India, right, started around 2004-5. So earmarking some funds for women in different sectoral programs, so that there could be mainstreaming women in different ministries, different sectors, and personal policies should be such that women representation should be more, and by this way. So in conclusion we can say that from above it is clear that both that gender equality, gender equity and women empowerment. All these are the fundamental concerns for promotion of gender justice. And through this gender justice, finally, there will be the gender equality in society, and therefore, if we have to make our policy more effective, women friendly, representation of women concerns, then this is very important, and this way in 2 words we can go for making conclusion regarding this matter, right. This is the first one. Second question that we talk about, second question is very simple question, but answer is very subjective. Second question is simple but answer is subjective. When we see the question second here, like this question is a intercaste marriage between caste which have socio-economic parity have increased to some extent, but this is less true of interreligious marriage. Discuss this part. When we go for discussion of this part, what actually we find the matter, 2 things are there. First, consider that main question is on interreligious marriage, right. Main question again 10 marks, interreligious marriage. First of all, we must know that marriage in every country, no matter India, other country, marriage is considered a very important institution. So we can start our answer like we can go for answer writing in terms of first we will define the marriage, that what is the marriage, thereafter we will go for like thereafter we will go for our answer, that is that will be the here interreligious marriage that I told you. In the introduction we can write that marriage is basically a social institution, and in India marriage is basically a sacrament. So marriage being basically a sacrament, marriage is a most important institution of society, but there are different practices of marriage in our country, and the practices of marriage in our country are based on the basis of caste, on the basis of religion. So endogamy is the fundamental form of marriage. Now we have caste endogamy, we have religious endogamy, and we have gotra exogamy. Keeping in mind that part, when we say that interreligious marriage compared to intercaste marriage, it is less prevalent. When we talk about the intercaste marriage in our society, why intercaste marriage is less prevalent in our society and interreligious marriage? Both the reason being that in a society where cultural norms and values are very strong, both kinds of marriages are discouraged. But if we think about the interreligious marriage in our society, when we go for interreligious marriage in our society, we have this problem. Interreligious marriage means that rigid norms. First, compared to caste, we have less opportunity for interreligious marriage. As per Hindu Marriage Act, intercaste marriage is permitted, because in Hindu Marriage Act we have these features. So we can go for marriage. First, second, because they all belonging to the same religion, so there is a more and more similarities between them, and because being similarities people follow this kind of marriage. So first, second, third, as a result of urbanization, industrialization, education among the people, growing awareness among the people of different caste, corporatization of culture, new opportunities, independence on the part of individuals. Because of these reasons, intercaste marriages are gradually increasing in our society, right. So it is somehow followed. In fact, Ambedkar Sahab in his book Annihilation of Caste System also talked about that if we have to reduce the caste inequalities in society and we have to promote the bond of relationship between them, we have to go for intercaste marriage. So intercaste marriage promoted. So in some observations, even Supreme Court has also appreciated about कि now if the cases of intercaste marriage increasing, it should not be considered in negative sense. Rather, this will promote more and more social harmony and social solidarity when there will be more cooperation between the different groups, right? But so far as the interreligious marriage is considered, actually we have two provisions. Under Hindu Marriage Act, we have the provision that people of some religions like Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, for which Sikh, for which the act is applicable. But if they want to go to marriage outside, like marriage between Hindu and like a Muslim, a man of Hindu and Muslim, or between Hindu and Christian and Muslims, they have to follow the special marriage act, provision of a special marriage act. So question is that why it is less like prevalent, less true, na? This is increasing, intercaste marriage increasing, but less true of religious, interreligious marriage. Many reasons are there of not promoting the interreligious marriage in our country. First of all, consider rigid cultural norms and values. This is the first requirement. Second, we can say that when we go for this marriage, second we have to go for, we are to understand this this matter. Reasons are there, reasons for less true, reasons for less true. First we can write here like rigid norms of society, rigid norms of society regarding interreligious marriage. First one is there, norms very rigid, number one. Second, consider legal complication. Legal complication. By the way, I told you that as per Special Marriage Act 1954 somehow talks about. Again, now in the present situation in India, there are some states which are sometimes not in favor of intercaste, interreligious basically marriage. Third is considered in our country like we have anti-conversion sentiment. Next, consider the psychological barrier. See how this psychological barrier is created in society. Psychological barrier is created in society just because of cultural differences, sometimes long cultural practices which are different from each other. So this creates a mindset. Cultural homogeneity creates similar mindset. Cultural heterogeneity creates differences in the mindset. So I think sometimes within the same religion, cultural homogeneity is more compared to interreligion. So within the same religion, marriage between different castes is more compared to the interreligious marriage. Somehow it is also found, but though this matter, it happens. Third, considered like issues of, next is considered property issues. Property issues. Whether in case of conversion, whether there will be right to property or not, this itself is a big concern today, and therefore it happens. Next, considered the political factor. Today in our country, the political factor is a serious factor. The political factor, you will not mention the present political rift or matter. Political factor, when we talk about, no, because this political factor, like today we have violence, today we have like somehow is social distance, and sometimes a fear of harassment, fear of victim of violence, fear of harassment, or sometimes the fear of that we know two things are there, na? Fear of violence, fear of harassment, and this violence also involves one we can say honor killing, you better understand. So out of this fear sometimes it is prevalent. So we can say that interreligious marriage is less in India, for which religious factor, cultural factor, psychological factor, political factor combinedly have the impact, As we know, in case of endogamous marriage, endogamy is prevalent across the world for more and more harmony, more and more compatibility, and just sometimes fear from the outsider groups, therefore it has the requirement. So for that purpose we are supposed to write answer this way. So we can say that as the prevalent norms and culture of society and ideas, the intercaste marriage is more in India compared to interreligious, though gradually because of modernization of society, education, awareness, legal rights of people, even interreligious marriage are also found, though less compared to intercaste marriage. That's all about it. Second, third question that we are going to discuss about, that is we have, this is a very, I think though it is a part of our question, this question is more close to social justice. But I am going to discuss sometimes even in social issues we can include this question. 3 words are there. If you understand here, actually what you find in dealing with a socio-economic issues of development, what kind of collaboration, in dealing with the socio-cultural issues, what kind of collaboration required between government, between NGO and between private sector, between private sector. In dealing with the socio-economic issues of development, what kind of collaboration between government, NGO and private sector would be most productive? What kind of collaboration should be there? First of all, we have to say that when we are going to discuss about the part of introduction, the introduction part, again I told you every question would be like introduction, that told you in the beginning, will be like body structure, will be like conclusion, and whenever we are going to write a question in 10 words, this is the 10 marks and 150 words, very difficult to give a big conclusion, 1 or 2 sentence maximum. Sometimes even if conclusion is not there, that cannot be a big challenge, but if giving in 1 sentence or 2 sentences, that can be okay, fine. Introduction part, again what is required? 3 sectors of government. We can say here that there is a multiple stakeholders in society, so multi-dimensional efforts required to make the socio-economic issues development effective, and this for multi-dimensional effects their role or impact, their role is very important. We can define, like first we can say government, 3 sectors are there. Government is considered public sector, then there is a private sector, then third one is the NGO, this is considered third sector of the society, like it is considered the non-profit sector. So 3 sector of the society. When we try to understand the role of these 3 sectors, first one by one we can go for this discussion. First we can go for this discussion, like that is we have the role of NGOs. First understand the matter over here, that the government can body structure, After introduction in body structure, we can say that government can provide one by one, then we'll go in collaboration. Why? What government can provide? We all people know government is the main source of like a goal of development. First one, government can provide framework of rules and of regulations. Framework of rules and regulations, this is very important. So goal is given and the rule is given. And third, consider sometimes government can also provide resources at least to NGOs. Can provide the resources to the NGOs. This is very important. Second, when we talk about the private sector, why private sector is private sector, when we talk about private sector can provide private sector is though considered profit making, but private sector can provide, they have capital, no doubt. They also have a capital. Private sector investment. Private sector can also provide the technology, because sometimes they have more and more technological matter. And third, consider management. Private sector is very important and provide management, effective management we can say. That we say generally term is 3 E's, means it can provide efficiency in management, can provide effectiveness, and sometimes can also provide economy. Though it is profit making, but in collaboration can provide the economy. So from this point of view, we can say that is very important. The private sector participation enhances the effectiveness of functioning of the areas that I will discuss about. Third, consider third sector, we have the NGOs. When we talk about the NGO, basically non-governmental organization consider the third sector of society, mainly responsible for, or basically it gives some kind of services to society, and sometimes it provides input to the government. So when we talk about NGO, first gives insight about grassroots level, level people in terms of what they have. Second most important thing, NGO act as a bridge between government and people. Act as a bridge between government and people. Third, we can say sometimes NGO also provides inputs to government that helps in policy making. Or again, NGO also provides services. Services which can be of different types, like health, education, information, empowerment. These services are very important. One more, we can say NGO sometimes act as a watchdog. Many times NGO act as a watchdog or watchdogs, and that makes the system more effective that make the system more transparent. So, we can say NGO has also very important role. So, this way happen. The three sectors have their respective role. Now, when we talk about the first one, that we talk about the collaboration between government and NGOs. First, we can have collaboration between government and NGOs, and I told you they try to go for shared goal of development of marginalized. Number one, it would be there. First. Second, consider government has also a goal to develop the weaker section. NGO also mainly consider service providers to the poor people. So, they can go for the marginalized people, helping the marginalized people. Second, what they are required, that can act in troubled areas. Troubled areas means where there can be conflict zone. Sometimes there are some areas conflict zone, sometimes can be disaster zone. They play a very important role in rehabilitation of people. NGO has very important role. So, collaboration between NGO and government to extend the rehabilitation measures, that is very fundamental requirement. Third, consider for sustainable work. Sustainable work they can go for, and sometimes sustainable work for again health, education, other services. Health, education and other services, they can go for this matter. Government, when we talk about the collaboration between the private sector and NGOs, this can also happen. Many times collaboration between private sector and the NGOs, it happens. Why it is there? Today, as you know, one point we can mention in our answer, like CSR, under the corporate social responsibility, that is the part of the corporate governance today. So, they say by under CSR, private sector provides some resources to the different NGOs to work for marginalized people, environmental issues, etc. Second, consider private sector can also provide financial support to NGOs. Many NGOs are supported by private sectors also. Third, consider private sector is very important in providing infrastructure to NGOs, and apart from that there can be close cooperation for such particular purpose. Third, last point is there, that we can say collaboration between government and private sector. Again here we can mention collaboration between government private sector, like they can go for the earlier I told you, they can go for faster work. When private sector is there, we can have faster work. Government sector is sometimes criticized for red tapeism, unnecessary or inordinate delay in the process of work, but private sector involvement, they are more governed by profit making. So, in this concern, private sector will try to complete the work within the time frame, within the deadline they have set for completion of work, and therefore faster work is possible. Number two, considered that helps in infrastructure development, helps in infrastructure development, like we can mention today the highway construction, the bridge construction, construction of many buildings, sometimes airport, management of other centers would be there. And best ideal picture for this is we say PPP model, right. Public private partnerships model, PPP's model, public private partnership model, where both public sector and government sector participating together, giving their finance, giving their efforts, giving their managerial skills, and by that way work is done more effective way. So, it can be very, very helpful. So, I think this is the answer for third one. Next question that we have, that is what is regional disparity? This is the simplest question. Here we are not required to make much intellectual efforts. Question is what is a regional disparity? What is regional disparity? Number one, how it differ from diversity? 2 words. Again the 250 words, na? Very good. 50 marks, 15 marks. So, regional disparity and how it differ from diversity, and how serious is the issues of regional disparity in India. Oh, the seriousness of the issues of regional disparity in India. When we discuss about the topic regionalism in our class, already we discuss about that how the regional disparity in India resulting from the economic disparities, resource disparities, sometimes leading to the rising sense of regionalism or sometimes intrastate conflict. Now, let us how we should begin framing answer of this topic. First, again we can go for like writing our answer, and first we can write answer like there is a close connection. First we will define the term. Let us begin, and how the term can be defined. First we shall define the word, that is to say we can go for 2 words are there, na? First term is there, key words are there, regional disparity. So, what is regional disparity? When we talk about disparity, means inequality. Disparity means first we can say here in introduction part 2 we can write like disparity means inequality or imbalance. So, regional disparity refers to inequality or disparity between regions in terms of resources, in terms of resources, in terms of development, in terms of way of life. No? Disparity in terms of resources, in terms of development, in terms of way of life that talk about. So, it is there. Now, this involves imbalances, and this reason may be the result of, and it may be the result of natural factor or process of evolution, process of evolution in terms of development, process of evolution in terms of development. In some areas development is more focused, some areas development is less focused, and therefore this part we can go. So this is the first one, is the natural factor, and when we say process of evolution or development, this is the man-made, this is the man-made. So regionalism can be both the result of this regional disparity is both the result of natural factor as well as we talk about the man-made factor, and this disparity can be reflected in terms of, it may be found in terms of interstate or can be found in terms of intrastate or can be found in terms of total or sectoral. So disparity can be found in terms of intrastate disparity, within the state disparity, like in Mumbai the Vidarbha area the demand is there, earlier when Bihar, Jharkhand was there, Jharkhand was there. So some areas within the same state when there is a inequality in one part. So we are supposed to mention here first this definition, thereafter why this happened, thereafter that it may be reflected in terms of interstate, intrastate, in terms of total disparity or in terms of the sectoral factor, this one. Now second term is a very beautiful word is there, that we have the diversity. Thereafter we are required to mention the diversity, fine. And diversity means what? Diversity sometimes is considered like a word like richness, richness of life system. Yeah, richness of life. If you cannot write the life system for making some controversy, we can say richness of life, or richness of life, or generally it is found in terms of differences in attributes and of identities. Differences in attributes and identities. So it is the presence of multiple forms of groups, socio-cultural values, norms, ideas and way of life, or another term can write mode of living. So diversity is basically the richness of our socio-cultural life. It is found in terms of differences of attributes. Okay. Now generally regional disparity has a negative connotation, but when we talk about the diversity, diversity can have both positive connotation as well as negative connotation. Positive connotation means diversity simply refers to how the multiple forms of life, how there is a coexistence of multiple attributes, coexistence of multiple identities, coexistence of multiple religions, multiple culture, multiple languages that we find in our country itself. So it's a kind of multiculturalism, but if the element of diversity is such that it is not acceptable by society, then it is considered harmful. And sometimes this may also create a challenge if there is incompatible diversity, element of diversities are not compatible among themselves, may create a problem. Sometimes when the element of diversity is such that it is used for identity politics, then it is harmful. So we can say that this happens. So sometimes diversity is there, and this diversity sometimes also may create disparity. Diversity though may consider both positive and negative way, because some areas are very rich in, like geographical areas, some areas very rich in resources and some areas less rich in resources, like some parts of the country very rich in resources, some part less, and there is no like a interconnection between two regions in terms of sharing or redistribution of resources. Then this, in this sense, diversity sometimes leads to some kind of disparity, may leads to sometimes this like identity creation and identity politics, right. So this happens. Now when we talk about that how serious the issues of regional disparity in India, this is the main question that we have to focus maximum part. So how much issues are serious when we talk about, or we can say how much serious is reflected in terms of, how much serious is reflected in terms of, like generally what we find, economic imbalance, reflected in terms of economic imbalance, first one. Second may be reflected in terms of like interstate conflict, that we better understand today. Now there is a growing cases also of intrastate conflict. Intrastate conflict, these are the very common. We have the imbalances in terms of economic development. Today the western part of India is more and more developing, eastern part of India is less developing. Sometimes some areas like if you go Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, these areas are the minerally rich areas, but despite that in terms of developmental indicator they are far lesser compared to some states like Gujarat, like Maharashtra. So sometimes this leads to a condition of interstate conflict, and sometimes within the same state may be possibility of intrastate conflict. Sometimes this also leads to migration. People from the less developed area go to the areas more developed. So huge migration of people from the eastern part of India to the western part of India and southern part of India. And sometimes this migration also creates a regional. This also promotes the regionalism, the regionalistic spirit. And this is also a source of identity politics that happen. Sometimes diversity involves different identities. And when these identities are used for some kind of like nativism, for some kind of personal reason, I mean cultural reason, for some kind of political reason, then in this situation it may promote the identity politics. And this happens, the identity politics leads to sometimes a fight, can be the source of violence, maybe the source of violence in society happen. And this most frequently reflected, you can give the example of water dispute, sometimes resource dispute, water dispute, and the regional disparities has also led some other areas like demand for new states. It's a common features, demand for new states, and sometimes in some cases also leads to secessionist movement. Yes, these points you could mention, that the demand for new states and the secessionist movement, this, and what migration we have mentioned somewhere na, actually this migration is more in case of distressed migration or distressed migrant workers. So these points we can mention. On the basis of that we can say that so from above it is quite clear that regional disparity in India and diversity, both though are different, but sometimes may have a connection between two, because if that diversity, geographical diversity, resource diversity, cultural diversity used in terms of making prosperity of own region and sometimes excluding the others, this may further leads to the disparity, and this disparity may have serious concern, may be reflected on the basis of these factors. So, the problems could be addressed like in terms of idea of inclusive growth, like in terms of the role of the National Integration Council, that has very important role of the Interstate Council. These are the bodies which play very important role to bridge up the gap between the different states. Hence, we can write like this. Now, this question is done. Next question that we have, the fifth one is there, that is despite comprehensive policies for equity, despite comprehensive policy for equities and social justice, underprivileged section are not getting the full benefits of affirmative action envisaged by the constitution. That comment again 250 words. So, what we are required to do over here, consider two words are there, na? Despite comprehensive policy for equity and for social justice, affirmative action not yet getting the full benefit of affirmative action. First of all, these are the three key words. Briefly, we can define these words. Equity means, I told you, treatment to the people or extending benefit to the people as per their needs, that is all, regardless of the circumstance. So, the people should be given the needs as per their circumstance. And social justice, when we talk about, social justice is a mechanism to ensure that inclusion of the people in society and avoiding the exclusion. And justice means this fair treatment to those sections of society which are considered underprivileged. And affirmative action, when we talk about, means simply, affirmative action means simply the positive action taken by the state, taken by the government, so that there could be some action in favor of those who are considered the underprivileged. So, it is a kind of preferential treatment to those who are not the significant part of mainstream part of the society itself. And therefore, somehow it is also found in our constitution. Like when we talk about the one is the reservation, and second we say the different commissions, In our constitution itself, article 15, 16 talks about to take action for such section of society. The state shall not make discrimination, but a state can make a special care, special action to the underprivileged section of the society. So, those who have suffered historically or have been suffering historically, for such section of society, affirmative action is taken, right. So, our answer framing would be like first introduction we can do, and when we are going to go for like this one, introduction, on the part of introduction we can mention that India has been a land of multiple groups, some of them are more developed, some of them are less developed, and just to ensure the inclusive growth, just to ensure the fair distribution of resources and opportunities to all sections of society, our constitution makers have made many important provisions in our constitution, keeping in mind the requirement of social justice. So, we have also followed the principle of equality and principle of differences as Rawls suggests in terms of affirmative action. But despite all such affirmative action, actually the things has not happened to that level. So required to take some positive actions. The challenge is that despite affirmative actions, why that section of society has not get or they are yet not getting the full benefits. A number of reasons are there, ये body structure में आएगा. So a number of reasons are there and we can find the reasons. What are the factors responsible for their barriers or why they have not got the full benefit. For this particular we can mention the ideas, that is to say we can mention the ideas over here, like why they have failed to get the benefit or yet not getting benefit. So the factors, barriers or factors responsible or despite equity, justice and affirmative action, if there are some barriers or the factors responsible, we are supposed to mention the factors. First of all, when we talk about, it's not a denying factor, we could mention like that, like the corruption. Corruption, the main factor. Corruption related to corruption in utilization of funds for SCs, STs, women, etc. First is the corruption. More corruption is prevalent over there in the utilization. So benefit is exactly not reaching to that section of society. Second, consider like lack of effective awareness. Lack of effective awareness among underprivileged. Awareness is lack of effective awareness among the underprivileged section of society. Therefore, among underprivileged regarding how to get, how to ensure delivery mechanism. They don't know how to take advantage of the delivery mechanism of government, or sometimes may not have the necessary documents, access to government offices, and because of that they are excluded. Third, considered administrative barrier. Administrative barrier, many kinds of barrier is there. One of them we can say like administrative barrier. First, we can say this is the institutional shortcoming. This is considered the institutional shortcomings that we are required to mention, like less motivation to work. Less motivation to work at a bottom level. Right? Less motivation to work at the bottom level. Now, grassroots level administration, panchayat level administration, block level administration, district level administration, sometimes motivation to work over there is a little bit lesser compared to working in urban areas, privileged areas, this one. And next, consider one more factor we can mention here, like social discrimination. Social discrimination. and this social discrimination is the result of structural factor. Structural factor. So, social discrimination means also the structural factor responsible for this matter and for that happening. Like in India, as we know, the caste system has been prevalent in India. So, the problem or issues of SCs and STs since the past there has been a serious concern despite legal measures, constitutional measures. Even in some areas we find that things are reported like that. And last but not least, we can say, we say also that in terms of rural urban gap, in terms of this, the village level, the things are not like that. One more factor I should mention, the last but not least, is that is the poor quality of service delivery. Poor quality of service delivery. What we find, the service delivery quality is very poor, and therefore sometimes at the grassroots level, bottom level, people are not able to achieve. In this regard, now these points could be mentioned in the body structure of the question. Thereafter, in conclusion, we could say, we can write, in conclusion we can say that affirmative action is essential for social justice, and their impact is though lesser because of the above mentioned factors, but it is also not denying the fact that government is also making some efforts to improving the quality of people and to make effective the system so that they can take advantage and benefit. We should go for good governance. We can promote or enhance digital governance, and the at least grassroots level we should go for proper implementation, engaging civil society, and proper monitoring of the different policies and programs by getting real feedback from the beneficiaries, and also trying to just discourage the wrong beneficiaries and to find the true beneficiaries. For example, ration card. Government, as Honorable Prime Minister told, that ration card in our country are sometimes retained by those people who actually don't need such benefit from government, like APL section of society. So such measures, by such measures we can gradually include such people, and the real purpose of affirmative action can be effectively realized in our society. That's all about it. Now these questions are there. Last two questions are there, I think. One more question was, I think this question related to the, next question is related to the globalization. Again, this question is the contemporary question, and being young generation people, you can understand these questions. Globalization has increased urban migration, by skilled, young and unmarried women. Globalization has increased urban migration by skilled, young, unmarried women from various classes. How has this trend impacted? How has this trend impacted upon their personal freedom and the relationship with the family? These questions are there. How nice question. Simply this question wants to know that as a result of globalization, how LPG has provided multiple opportunities to the women of different folks of society, different parts of society, and how now there is migration, urban-ward migration of women to different areas, and because of their as a result of their skilled young unmarried women. So now they are migrating. On the basis of that, how their freedom has been affected, in what way their freedom, how this their freedom is being affected. So young people and skilled people and the unmarried women from various areas migrating. So how they are developing the mindset, what kind of relationship they are fostering in the new atmosphere, that is the question. Now we can first write here like globalization. When we talk about the globalization, key word is the globalization, key word is the like here personal freedom and the urbanization. But first we can begin this question again 15 words. We can begin this question by defining globalization. So in the introduction part we can define globalization. Thereafter we can discuss about how globalization has affected two areas. First we talk about globalization has affected that we talk about the personal freedom part. Second, then we can discuss about the relations with the family. Two areas are there. So again it has affected or it has impacted both positive and negative ways. Accordingly we can frame the answer. So the way we can do here, that is first we can define here the globalization. We can define here the globalization, and we can say that first globalization, introduction part. In the introduction we can just start that globalization is a multi-dimensional process of change involving globalization is a multi-dimensional process of change involving increasing interconnections or interconnectedness and interconnectedness and interdependence among different countries and societies, right? This is the ideal definition of globalization is given. We can start from that globalization is basically or fundamentally a multi-dimensional process of change, just not economic dimension, involving increasing interconnections and interdependence among the countries of the world. So it involves basically cross country flow of capital, information, technology and labor power. In this way, globalization has been multi-dimensional process has affecting our social cultural dimension as well. This part of introduction. So impact of globalization can be assessed or can be found like the way it has affected first part we can say, we can write here like the impact on freedom, impact on freedom of the people. Now you can mention here freedom again, positive freedom, or we can say this Impact on freedom, again positive. Again we can mention here like negative, right? Positive and both positive and negative. When we talk about the positive, this freedom has given them like we can say like first economic independence. This freedom is a fundamental requirement. Economic independence gives a sense of confidence among the people of society. So we can say economic independence. Second, education opportunity. Education opportunity. And third, gives them job opportunity. Gives them job opportunity. Apart from that, now changed perception with regard to life. Changed perception to life. Gradually the perception towards life is changing. More awareness among the people with regard to legal right and at least the unmarried woman gender rights. That part is positive side. Negative impact, when we talk about what is happening, actually globalization also creating the sense of individualism, a high sense of individualism. This is happening, or self-centrism. Individualism also involves self-centrism. So this individualism or self-centrism, that is considered negative because India has always given importance to the collectivism. Second, consider consumerism or high consumerism. Third, consider violence. Sometimes the violence or this happen the limitless aspiration. In sociology, there is a thinker Durkheim, you will not mention in the answer, but just telling you that Durkheim talked about in modern society economic condition growing because of the limitless desires on the part of people. Globalization has created this limitless desires. Sometimes this creates among the people like alienation or loneliness on the part of people. This also sometimes involves the increasing cases of suicide. Increasing cases of suicide, these are not considered good from this point. So freedom is a positive thing, but when people are more and more like self-centric, becoming in their choice, in their desires, in their emotion, this can have very much a disastrous impact. So globalization is impacting the idea of the freedom both in positive as well as in negative way. Next, what we are going to say, the first impact on freedom. Second part is now there, it is there. Next answer is that impact on family, right? Impact on family. Again, impact on family, we can say positive impact. Again, we can say negative impact. This positive impact, this negative impact. Positive impact, when we talk about, first one we can say the changed perception towards family. Changed perception towards role and responsibility. Changed perception towards role and responsibility. One more, democratization in family value. As a result of global culture or more liberal culture, there has been democratization of the family value. That's considered also important. That's good one. Third one we can say like here. Next one, financial help to family, because a good number of they are going outside earning, na? Like earlier there was joint family, small pieces of land, some pieces of land, all member dependent on land. So living standard was very poor, sometimes conflict, sometimes fight. So now there is decline and declining impact of traditional value. I have already mentioned democratization over here we can mention, so declining the impact of feudal patriarchal mindset in the family, family becoming more and more positive. Negative side is there more. First that we can say dilution of joint family, dilution of a joint, because globalization promotes the idea of nuclear family. So dilution of joint family, matlab rising sense of nuclear family. So spirit, again you can also mention the spirit of jointness is gradually declining, or we can also write the spirit of bond of relationship, spirit of bond of relationship and emotion declining. Yeah, bond of relationship and the emotion. Family means also emotional connection. Gradually now emotional connection is declining. This is happening in the family system. Again here rise of individualism. Rise of individualism in family itself. So collectivism in family has declined and individualism in the family has also developed. This is happening. One more we can say like a conflict. Cases of conflict gradually increasing in the family system itself. And so far as the woman part is considered, when we talk about changed pattern, like a pattern of marriage, also this involves, here we can say the pattern of marriage, change in pattern of marriage. Not much change, but at least in the middle class there has been some change in terms of the mate selection process, and otherwise this has happened. And more last but not least we can say this also creating the generation gap. This is also creating the generation gap. So we can say that impact of globalization has been both positive. So from above conclusion, from above we can say the impact of globalization has been both positive and negative on the freedom as well as on the rights of the individuals and the structure of the family. So we can say gradually both as per freedom people are becoming more, asserting more and more their rights, sometimes justified, but the kind of impact that is happening on the part of family sometimes considered negative. But though the process is universal, so happening in India, it can be moderated by value cultivation. Now next one is the last but not least, one more question is left. Let us go. Here is the critically analyze proposition that there is a high correlation between India's cultural diversity and socio-economic marginalities. Critically analyze, one word is there. Second, high correlation. Is there correlation, is there connection between the cultural diversity and the socio-economic marginalization? If you find, you can have some evidences to say sometimes action, yes. Critically examine means simply you are not required to narrate something. Critically examine means something that after a brief introduction about it, brief mention on this subject matter, somehow we have to contradict this idea itself, right? When there is a high correlation, that part we have to mention that yes, there exists some correlation, but the things are not always there. many measures are being adopted just to bring the marginalized section of society into the mainstream part of society. तो थोड़ा contradict करना, somehow we have to make a, just we have to go to contradict. What we can do over here first, like cultural diversity, you can start from here and this one, two words are there and you can say the you can, beginning could be there, like introduction you can start from keyword that cultural diversity, like cultural definitions, right, cultural diversity, go for definition. And cultural diversity means existence of multicultural practices. Diversity means multiplicity. So when you talk about the cultural diversity means multiple cultural practices, values, norms and way of life that is found in society. It involves a recognition and respect to different way of life, different cultures, modes of living, etc. And when we talk about the socio-economic marginality means the state or condition of being excluded or the people who are not properly included towards the larger process of society, towards the mainstream development process of society. So marginalization is a process of putting people onto the margin of society. Now what correlation exists between two? By this definition, this is the introduction part. When we have to go for body structure, we can say on the basis, so if we have a picture in larger perspective, we find yes there exists some correlation between cultural diversity and socio-cultural marginalization. What it happens, this marginalization could be two types of marginalization. One, consider the encapsulated marginalization and second, consider the constructive marginalization. Encapsulated marginalization means where the people actually they feel themselves alone, there is a loneliness, there is a separation, there is a self-distress and sometimes a self-segregation or a kind of a segregation. Second kind of marginalization that has, that we can say constructive marginalization. And constructive marginalization means when actually they go for a very pro-action, positive action, take a active role to construct their own identity, and in the process of construction of their own identity actually they try to develop a sense of identity and sometimes go for mobilization and a separation from the other culture. Like sometimes we find the movement within the country on the basis of cultural identity, Bodos, sometimes Nagas earlier, Bodos, now the Jharkhand movement earlier, now the demand in Gorkhaland. There were some areas sometimes in Punjab we find demand for the Khalistan. So that on the basis of they think, but here the concept of relative deprivation work more as a sociological concept. So marginalization is sometimes may happen, or socio-economic marginalization may happen as a result of cultural diversity, depending on what kind of cultural group exists in society. What kind of cultural group exists in society. So some areas when we talk about some intersectoral, some areas when we talk about how correlation exists or intersection between two. Where is the intersection between two? Where is their correlation between two? How they intersect? First we can say, like if think in India like caste, you could give example Yes, somewhere correlation exists, like in terms of caste diversity in India. And caste diversity in India, caste involves a hierarchical arrangement of people. So this caste diversity involves hierarchical arrangement of people. So it involves a kind of rank order and therefore high and low position. So those in the caste system, in the caste diversity, those who are the lower position, actually they have a sense of marginality or marginalization, like SCs, basically the Dalits. In terms of caste hierarchy, those who are considered Dalits, they have their historical marginalization, and sometimes therefore Dalit movement started in India just to assert their constructive identity, constructive marginalization, and they also went for sometimes like Dalit movement, sometimes like Sanskritization, as Srinivas have found, to enhance their status in society, or sometimes consider the conversion movement as by Ambedkar Sahab. Next, consider apart from caste, like religion, caste diversity, religion or religious diversity. Religion is there, sometimes generally religious diversity may also leads to, like sometimes if the term is very, we can write like sometimes religious diversity may leads to, or there may be a sense of marginalization of minorities. Marginalization of minorities, sometimes there may be a possibilities. Third, consider language. Language is a powerful means. Language is a powerful means in our society, and therefore what is found over here, in our country more than 200 languages spoken and more than thousands of dialects spoken in our country. So in the given situation, sometimes maybe possibility like those people who are speaking the languages, the smaller linguistic group, like Hinduism, basically the religion that follows the language Hindi, and Hindi spoken by the around 44% population of India, then followed by other segments of society. So those in terms of linguistic identity, more than 100 languages are there where the speakers are less than 10,000 people. So those are small linguistic groups, there may be possibility of their marginalization. And last but not least, we can say also that geographical factor. Geographical factor also creates, may also create the marginalization of the people, that's all about it. But because critical evaluation is there, so you can, after the change of paragraph, you can mention, from above we can say that these are, there exists some correlation between these factors and marginalization. But at the same time we can say that so far as in India is considered, there is a little some efforts by government, we have check and balance, so sometimes this correlation is contradicted, because we go for your efforts made by government, or efforts are being made by government, like for example reservation, like the reservation to underprivileged. Reservation to underprivileged, that is needless to say, like inclusive growth, promotion of the idea of inclusive growth that we are doing, sabka saath sabka vikas. Third, we can say cultural protection. We have the cultural protection, like minorities, cultural protection. Sometimes we can say like Article 29 and 30 of our constitution, that we have given protection to the section. Again, when we go to the constitution, apart from that you can mention, like in the constitution, provisions in constitution, You could mention the provision in constitution, like we can say 5th, 6th and 8th schedules of the constitution. The 5th, 6th and 8th schedule of the constitution, this we can have. And apart from 5th, 6th and the 8th schedule of the constitution, this linguistic 22 languages are recognized by the government. Apart from that, we can say like recent measures by government, some policy measures, scholarship to their children, some other policy measures, like government started Hamari Dharohar Yojana, so that there could be their cultural protection to the different cultural sites of different groups in our country. And we have, so in conclusion, from above it we can say that though it is true that some correlation could be there, but not the level it is found, because many efforts are being made to make them together, to bring them together, and there could not be some like a marginalization and exclusion of that section of society. So picture, there is a very complex relationship between the two. So despite correlation, by positive and affirmative actions, our government is by positive and affirmative actions, efforts are being made how to minimize the impact and how to empower those sections of society and how to promote their demarginalization by including into the mainstream part of society. In this way, we could write the answer. So these points were very important points in the short time period what I could discuss, I discussed about it. And in class notes it was already given. Those who participated in the class could take advantage of all these points. Thanks for getting this opportunity to discuss with you. And again I would say that I am going to wind up this discussion now. Have a good day to all of you, and God bless you.